So, all right. Well, since we missed last week because of our business meeting, and of course, you know me, I don't like having long business meetings, but when we had, something as big as starting that new ministry, it was worth taking the whole time. But we missed a week of our study, and I'm enjoying this study. And the last one we had 2 weeks ago, if you'll remember, the study that we're doing now is called It's Not Too Late, How God Uses Less Than Perfect People. And we talked about how God used Moses, and we've always thought of, I knew all my life that Moses had killed the Egyptian, and I always looked at it as he was protecting an Israelite. And I always looked at it, that's kind of the way I grew up thinking, but after reading it a little deeper and it wasn't self-defense. He wasn't saving the Israelite at the time, because this says that he looked around to see if anybody was watching, and basically Moses killed the man and murdered the man, and then Moses ran. We also saw that Moses made excuses. His excuse was that he didn't talk plain, that he was slow of speech. But yet, as we look back at his early life, he was trained. He was strong in speech. He was strong in physically and as a strong leader in Egypt as he grew up. So we saw that he was only making excuses. But yet we saw that through all of that, God used him in a mighty, mighty way. And anytime that throughout the New Testament, even now in Israel, Abraham, Moses, and David they're spoken of more highly than anybody. Those are the three that you still hear about today in Egypt or in Israel. So he had a great influence. But tonight we're going to talk about another one, and this is one that there's not a whole lot about this one in the Old Testament. There's quite a bit, but I mean, we see in the Old Testament, we're going to talk about Rahab, okay? And when we look at Rahab, and she's always referred to as Rahab the Harlot, or depending on which version, Rahab the prostitute in some versions, but Rahab the harlot. And the thing is when we first see Rahab, she is a harlot. And then all of that way, she's mentioned in the New Testament, she is continually referred to as Rahab the harlot. And it's like, that's the way we are in our lives. Once you get tagged with something, once you have something that goes against you, once you have misplaced trust, or once you have some character flaw, once something like that happens in your life, you're tagged away as far as people go forever, it seems like. I've told people all my life, I said, you can build I've spent 48 years building a good reputation, building an honest rapport with people, and I could lose it in a minute. And that's the truth. I mean, that's the way it is. It don't matter. You can work your whole life, but if you've got a flaw, once you mess up, once you're dishonest, then you're known for that from now on, for a lot of people. And that's one of the things that we're going to see throughout the rest of this study, is how that we focus so much on character flaws, how we focus on everybody's flaws, but God don't. And that's the greatest thing about it, is that God does not focus on our flaws. If He did, we would be in some great trouble. So tonight we're going to talk about Rahab, and the first thing we're going to do, is go to Joshua chapter 2. And in Joshua chapter 2, it starts out, it says, "Now Joshua the son of Nun sent out 2 men from Acacia Grove to spy secretly, saying, 'Go view the land, especially Jericho.'" Now we talked Sunday night when we were talking about the book of Judges, we talked about how much that people, Moses did it, Joshua did it, in Judges, the people of Dan did it. They were good about sending out spies. They wanted to find out. It seems like they never fully trusted God. If God says go, we should go without needing to send out spies. We went, named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was of Jericho, "Behold, come here tonight from the children of Israel to search out the country." So sent to Rahab, saying, "Bring your house all the country." Hid them. So she said, "No, where they were from." The gate was being shut, where the men went to overtake them, laid in order on the roof. The men pursued them by the road on the Jordan to the fords. As soon as those who pursued them had gone out, they shut the gate. Now, before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are faint-hearted because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were on the other side of the Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. And as soon as we heard these things, our hearts melted. Neither did there remain any more courage in anyone because of you. For the Lord your God, He is God in heaven and on earth beneath. Now therefore I beg you, swear to me by the Lord, since I have shown you kindness, that you also will show kindness to my father's house, and give me a true token, and spare my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death." So the men answered her, "Our lives for yours, if none of you tell this business of ours. And it shall be, when the Lord has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with you." Then she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was on the city wall. She dwelt on the wall, and she said to them, "Get to the mountains, lest the pursuers meet you. Hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned, and afterwards you may go your way." So we see here that these men, they send out the spies, and they come into Jericho. Now when they get to Jericho, they want to see what there is in Jericho. We don't know why they were spying out Jericho, because none of what they spied out made any difference. Have you ever noticed that? They sent these 2 spies into Jericho. They went in there, they wanted to find out what kind of maybe what kind of money they had, what kind of booty they could take. They wanted to find out what kind of army they had. They wanted to find out all this stuff. But the thing is the way they took Jericho, nothing that they spied out made any difference. Because when they took Jericho, God said, "I will take it." Basically, when you go to spy out, you want to find out, okay, how thick are the walls? What kind of gate do they have? Is it something that we can batter the gate down? Is it something we can climb over? Is it something we can tunnel under? Once we get inside, if we go through the gate, how many men are going to meet us as we come through the gate? How many men will we lose as we go through the gate? Once we get inside, what are we going to see? What kind of money is there? All those kind of things is what you would take into account. And that's what they were there to spy out. But God said, march around it for 7 days. On the seventh day, march around it 7 times, yell out real loud, blow your horns and the trumpets, and I'll take care of the rest. And then he said, when they go in, don't be concerned about what kind of cattle or what kind of animals, what kind of... just kill everything. I mean, that's what God told them to do. So all the spying that they did accounted for nothing. And the thing is once guys came in, somehow word got to the king. We don't know how the king found out that they had spies in there, but when the king found out, he got scared. Now, had he known God's going to give them this land anyway, 2 spies wouldn't have made any difference. And like I said, as we see later in the book of Joshua, all that the spies found out made absolutely no difference to the way they took the land. And that's the way we are. We want to be like Joshua. We want to go find out all the information. And I'm guilty of it. We all are. I mean, if I'm going to buy something, y'all know how long I spent looking at trucks before I bought that one? I mean, I wanted to find out everything about them. I did. I researched them online. I looked at them online. I looked at how much they should cost. I looked at how much power I looked at the amenities. I looked at who had what in East Tennessee within 100 miles. I mean, I searched forever to find out everything I could before I made a decision on buying a truck, and I'm that way. We're all somewhat that way. We want to find out. I read reviews, but I want to find out stuff. And I guess that's the way Joshua and Moses and the people of Dan were. They wanted to find out all they could. But here's the thing. When God tells you point blank, go take this land, should we be concerned about finding out all that we can about it? And we should be that way about everything. We should be that way if we feel God is leading us to something, if we feel God is showing us where we need to go and what we need to do. The particulars about it are not that important. And I truly believe that. And there's not... because it becomes not our decision to make. It wasn't these spies' decision to make. We saw what happened when Moses sent out spies and he listened to his spies rather than listening to God. And we do the same thing. And listen, when we came here, I came here as pastor. I could have taken a lot of things into account. I could have asked a lot more questions. But when I felt that this is where God wanted me, then this is where I decided to go. And we should be that way in our lives when we ask God. Quit trying to make those decisions ourselves. But here we have Rahab. These guys, now Rahab, her house is in the wall. At least probably at the top of the wall. She's up in the top of the wall because they went up from her house or her dwelling up onto the roof. One thing that I had never thought about was most likely her house was probably, or her dwelling was probably close to the gate. And because she says they slipped out the gate, it was close to the gate. It was, and when you think about it, being one of the town prostitutes, you would want to be at the entrance to the city. As travelers came into the city, that's where she would get the most business, is right inside the city gate. And so that's where she was at, and she was on the upper level. Now, I've never understood how, when the walls came tumbling down, how her being on the upper part of the wall, how they survived. God, I guess just this section of the wall didn't fall. I've always thought about the wall just completely falling down, but evidently this part of it, Rahab and her family was dwelling in the wall stood. And it had a window, we know that. that she let him down with. But here's the thing. Rahab knew. Rahab knew what she was getting herself into. Here's the thing. She lied to the king. What do you think the consequences would have been had she found out? Or had the king found out? She would have been killed. She would have been taken and probably tortured, burned at the stake. Who knows what they would have done? They would have made an example of her. Because here's the thing, they're all scared. They're all scared for their lives. The Israelites have been roaming around for 40 years. You got to remember that. They've been roaming around for an area about half the size of Tennessee. Now you take a group of 1 million people roaming around in just that small of an area. I mean, I remember when a kid, I heard that they'd traveled for 40 years. I'm thinking they've, gone from Florida to Washington or something, but it's like going from here to Nashville is about as far as they traveled. Maybe a little bit more, but not a whole lot. They wandered for 40 years because they could have got there in a couple months, but yet God made them wander for 40 years because of their disobedience. But during that time, God had been with them. During that time, God had fought their battles. During that time, He had supplied all their needs. And everybody in the land knew who they were. Everybody. Every king, every people. And here's the thing. They knew this people is God's people. I mean, He was known as the God of the Israelites. He was known as the God of the Hebrews. And people feared God. Even though they didn't worship Him, they feared what He was doing because they knew He was more powerful than their gods. And that's why they were so afraid. And that's why this king was so afraid that the Israelites had came there. Because what it meant to this king, the Israelites have come into my town. They are spying out my town. That means we're next. I mean, that's what he would take from that. We're next. We're going to be obliterated. So therefore, he's willing. He wants to find these men at all cost, and he's willing to make an example of Rahab if he finds out that she's lied. So not only do we have this lady who is known all through the Bible as a prostitute, which is a sin in itself, then we have her lying. Have you noticed that God does not take account why you lie? That's the thing. A lie's a lie. It don't matter if she lied for to save his spies or not. A lie's a lie, and she lied in the process of saving these spies. But she was willing to take that risk because she had seen what God could do. And this is what is so amazing to me. Here is a lady who is not Jewish. She does not worship that God, this God. But yet she has seen what He's done, and she's willing to risk her life for His cause. The Israelites walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. The Israelites have seen countless enemies obliterated by God, and they don't show the same faith as this woman who is of a different nationality, who has never met an Israelite as we know of up to this point, who has never even heard about our God other than what He has done for them. And yet she's willing to risk her life when the Israelites were not willing to go into Canaan after all that He had done for them. After the way that He had shown Himself on Mount Sinai, the way that He had destroyed Sihon and Og, the way that He had destroyed the Egyptians, they still were not willing to, but she was. And because of that, listen, we can all have it don't really matter what our background is. And that's it does to a lot of people, and that's sad. We take into account everybody's background, and we do. I mean, we all do it. We all judge people on what they've done in the past. And here's the thing, God forgives all. He looks at Rahab and he sees her job. He sees the sin in her life. He sees the lie that she told, but yet he also sees the faith that she has in him, that she's willing to put up her life. She's willing to risk her life for his cause. And in doing so, she shows how much she believes in him. And that's saying something. That somebody who's not Jewish, who's only heard the stories, puts that much faith in him. Now, when she did this, she risked her life, but she asked for a covenant. She said, I want a covenant. I want you to I want you to swear to me. I want you to make a promise. And I'm willing to risk my life. I'm willing to save you because I believe in what your God can do for me, and I believe in what your God has already done. I know that my people are done. I know that if you all come against my people, that my people are not going to survive because of your God. And for that reason, I have demonstrated my faith in your God, and in doing so, I want you to save my life. I want you to save my family. And they made a covenant with her. They told her, okay, sure, we'll do that. But if you don't, you have them in this room, you have them in this house, and you tie the scarlet ribbon outside the window, and we will instruct our people not to destroy you. But if they're not in there, if they choose not to come and take sanctuary here, then it's not on us. We're relieved of this promise if they're not in this room. So by faith, Rahab took something that was this horrible background that she had, this life of sin, this life of prostitution, and she takes it and does something spectacular. Even though what she did in the long run made no difference to the outcome. Did you understand that? Her hiding the spies didn't change the outcome of the battle. It didn't change the outcome of how the walls fell. It didn't change the outcome of what God instructed them to do. But what it did do was it established salvation for her. It established a rapport with her God. Lives there that we are back show God. We may not always see the results that we would like to. Well, sometimes now with this new ministry, I hope that everything goes great. I hope we see lots of people come. I hope we see. But listen, if we're faithful to God, even if we don't see the results, even if we don't see any good come from it, as long as we're faithful to what God leads us to do and we follow His guidance, we will see credit from it. And we're going to talk here in just a minute some of the stuff that we see that happens with Rahab. We see her being somebody who we would think of as unusable. We would think of somebody. This is a lady that if she was to come in here on a Sunday morning, dressed the way that she would normally be dressed, there would be some people that probably wouldn't feel comfortable with her. Okay? Probably not so much here. At some churches I've seen that there would be people that wouldn't talk to her. That's one thing I love about everybody here. I believe that we would make her feel welcome. But in a lot of places, she would not feel welcome. Because many people, many Christians, would make her feel that her life was useless or that she was not useful in church. And that's a sad thing. But here's the thing. It does not matter what we think of as useful. It doesn't matter who we think is usable by God. If we are willing to, He will make us usable. Now, we skip ahead. The walls come falling down. The children of Israel go in. They overtake the land of Jericho, and everything's good, right? And then we don't hear much about Rahab beyond that for a long time. But what we do hear is in 1 Chronicles chapter 2, we read of the descendants of Caleb. It says, these were the descendants of Caleb, the son of Hur, the firstborn of Ephrathah, were Shobal, the father of Kirjath Jearim, Salma, the father of Bethlehem. Okay? Salma, the father of Bethlehem, and then Hariph, the father of Beth Gader. Now, this Salma that we see here, who is the father of Bethlehem. Now, here we are coming up on Christmas, so Bethlehem is that's a town that we're going to hear a lot about this time of year. This is a town that's big this time of year. Matter of fact, you go to Bethlehem, and it don't really matter when you go to Bethlehem. There's Christmas lights everywhere in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is actually under Palestinian rule, and a lot of the people in Bethlehem, you run into a lot of Christians, Palestinian Christians in Bethlehem. One of the gift shops that we went to were run by Palestinian Christians. And there's Christmas lights all around Bethlehem year-round because that's what they're known for. So we know that Bethlehem is also called the town of David. And as we go through, because next we're going to skip over to Matthew chapter 5, or Matthew chapter 1, sorry. In Matthew chapter 1, this is where we see Salma again. Okay? Let's back up to verse 4. This says, Ram begot Amminadab begot Nahshon, and Nahshon begot Salmon. This is the same as Salma. You'll notice a lot of times in the Old Testament, or you'll read one name in the book of Kings and one name in the book of Chronicles, and they're the same person. You can track their lineage, but they're the same person. Okay, so Salmon begot Boaz. Boaz by Rahab. So Salma, that is listed in 1 Chronicles chapter 2, married Rahab. Now, I don't know what, I don't know what he had to go through taking her home to his mama, but he married Rahab. This is the man who is known as the father of, which is also known as the city of David. Begot Obed by Ruth. Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot King David the king. So here we see Boaz is Rahab's son. This is Boaz the same Boaz that we see in the book of Ruth. So this is Rahab becomes David's great-great-grandmother. That's quite a resume, okay? This is the referred names, and she's still referred as Rahab the Harlot. She's not, throughout the book, she don't shake that title. Here's the only time that we see her just referred to as Rahab. She made herself into the line of Jesus. Now that's something to be, I mean, that's big. Moses is not even in the line of Jesus. Elijah is not in the line of Jesus. That's huge. That was the main promise that God made to David, was that he would always have somebody on the throne of Israel. Speaking of Jesus. So the fact that Jesus was going to be able to, or that David was going to be the father of Jesus, that was the same promise that he made to Abraham, that everybody would be blessed. Now you look at the children of Israel, Abraham, just because they're the children of Israel, you can't really say that Abraham's lineage was blessed if you counted what the children of Israel have done over the centuries. But the fact that Jesus is in the line of Abraham makes Abraham's name forever, right? But here we have this lady who is referred to through Scripture as Rahab the Harlot, who is now great, multiplied by about 28, grandmother to Jesus. That's big. There was the fact that this is somebody, like I said, that we would think of as not the ideal kind of person to be around. This is the person. This is the kind that some people would step to the other side of the road to miss. This is the kind of person that some people just would not want to be around. And here we see that she is blessed in the fact that she marries Salmon, who becomes the father of Bethlehem. Now, going on from there, let's go to the book of Hebrews. Now, Hebrews, we just done our study on Hebrews last year. Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 is it's the faith chapter. It is the chapter that tells us, it starts out, verse 1, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. This is where we see all the elders, all the people spoken of throughout the Bible. We see Abel. Starts out with Abel. We see Enoch. We see Abraham. We see Moses. We see Noah. We see all these people. We see Samson in here. We see Sarah. All these great people. This is this is kind of the top people. These are the ones that have made it. To get mentioned in the 11th chapter of Hebrews is really, really something. So we go down here to verse 30. And in verse 30, 11th chapter of Hebrews, by faith, the walls of Jericho fell down. By faith, the harlot Rahab did not perish with those who did not believe when she had received the spies with peace. Now, like I said, this is really saying something to get into this chapter. Everybody, a lot of great men in the Bible that we see a lot of things about didn't get mentioned in the 11th chapter of Hebrews. But here we see that Rahab is brought out, that by faith, there again with her title, the harlot Rahab, did not perish. So she had a great amount of faith. Folks, it does, that's what I say, it don't matter in life what we do a lot of times, as long as we have faith. As long as we show full faith in God. And as long as we demonstrate that faith in our lives day in and day out. And it doesn't take a great deal. You would think that just hiding a couple spies would not be that great. You know, we see other people in the Bible that we might think of as doing a lot greater things. But she risked her life for this. And even though that, you know, God already had a plan, even if she hadn't done it, it would have worked out some other way. God blessed her. He made her part for, like I said, in the 11th chapter of Hebrews. And then we see, let's go down to just a couple, just a book over, the book of James, chapter 2. And in the book of James, chapter 2, down at verse 14, this is a passage that is very familiar to most of us. What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for their body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. And believe that there is one God. You believe there is one God. You do. The demons believe and tremble. But foolish man, that Abraham our see that faith was by works fulfilled, which says, believe God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And God, you see then that a man is justified by works and not by faith only. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out away? Abraham is known throughout Scripture as, at his time, he was the greatest of his time. He is known still today as the greatest of Israel's history. And Abraham was said by God that no one was greater than Abraham. And here we see that Abraham showed great faith, and all this great faith that Abraham showed. And then right after he talks about Abraham and how Abraham was justified by his work, just by his faith alone, then we see likewise Rahab the harlot been showing faith. You see, that's why faith without works, faith and with her works. We do that. God doesn't just call us to have faith. We are saved through faith. There's no doubt in that. We are saved by faith, not of our works, lest any man should boast. Rahab only said, I have faith. The chapter in the book of James, I do the line we take, and because of our faith, we should have works. And God forgets when we show our faith and we have our faith in Him. That's the great thing. He forgets those things of the past. He forgets. We see that James didn't forget a harlot. We see that the writer of Hebrews didn't forget that she was a harlot. But God didn't account the fact that she had faith and the fact that she acted upon her faith and she did good works because of her faith. And of that, she is remembered for eternity. Throughout your Christian life, and many of us, we don't have a real bad background. Some do, some don't. But the thing is God all. And we need to remember when we deal with people. You know, it would have been real easy for these, well, we wouldn't be associating with you. You're a prostitute. Let's go hide at somebody else's house. But God knew the faith that she had. God knew what he had planned for her. And for that reason, we're going to deal with people. We're going to see people. And they're going to be sometimes what we would consider undesirables, what we would consider unuseful. But we got to look at, what does God have in store? What does he have? What did he have in store for me? Why did he use me? How can he use somebody else? And how can I be a part of that? And that's the way we need to look at people in our lives, people that we come in contact with. And remember that none of us are perfect. And it's never too late for anybody to turn around. It's never too late for anybody to give their life to God and show great faith and do great things. All right? Does anybody have anything